Welcome to another Crux video feature. This feature is brought to you by the good people at the National Catholic Bioethics Center, which is America's leading Catholic center for education and consultation on matters related to human dignity in healthcare and the life sciences. Now, what we like to do on these video features is bring you some of the Catholic Church's best minds on a variety of different topics. And I promise you that is what we've got for you here today. Our guest is an old friend of mine, someone I have known and whose work I have admired for many, many years. Dr. John Haas, the president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center. John, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, listen, folks, it would take me all the time I have just to list all the degrees and academic honors that John Haas holds. Let me just bottom line it for you. This guy definitely knows his stuff. He is also a valued go-to figure by everyone in the church, including in leadership circles. He is a consultant to the U.S. Bishops Committee on Pro-Life Activities. In 2006, he was named an ordinary member of the Pontifical Academy for Life, which is the Vatican's primary advisory body on bioethics and pro-life concerns. He has also served as a member of the Governing Council of the Pontifical Academy. Again, just take it from me when I tell you there is nobody better on the stuff that we are about to talk to today. So, John, thank you very much for being with us.
I didn't realize you were Irish and had kissed the Blarney Stone.
Yeah, well, frankly, I just undersold your time this morning reviewing it. And I'm like, good God, if I have to commit that whole thing to memory, that's a day's work. Anyway, John, why don't we start with this? For people who may not be familiar with it, why don't you tell us what the National Catholic Bioethics Center is all about and the kinds of stuff that you guys do?
Well, we're fundamentally a think tank, and we were actually established back in 1971, a long time ago, or 72, pardon me, by the Catholic Hospital Association to be an educational and resource to address ethical questions arising from developments in medicine and life sciences. Basically, that was it. But over the years, we've grown and developed, and now we're probably the largest bioethics center in the Catholic world. I mean, we have 7 doctoral level bioethicists working for us. We're the largest Catholic publisher in the area of bioethics. We provide a consultation service, and we provide over 2,000 consultations in the course of a year. I don't know anybody out there that comes close to that. We have educational.
John, excuse me, but are those consultations, I mean, are you talking about hospitals will call you up, doctors call you up, dioceses call you up that are facing thorny issues? I mean, when you do those consultations, who are they for?
Well, it's all of the above. But we have a hotline where we can be reached 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Those are usually clinical questions or individual questions. But we also get a lot of institutional questions. If a Catholic healthcare system is going to collaborate with a non-Catholic system, they come to us so that they can collaborate together to achieve some common good, but without contributing to what we would consider to be immoral activities in the non-Catholic hospital. That sounds simple, but it's not. It's extraordinary.
It doesn't sound simple at all. I mean, I can only imagine how complicated that has to be.
And we work through hundreds of pages of legal documents to make sure that that happens properly. So those aren't, a call that comes in at 2 o'clock in the morning. But probably most of the personal and clinical questions we get have to do with end-of-life care. We get quite a number of those. I would say the next largest area addresses infertility, how couples might be able to overcome their inability to have a child. And then from there on, the whole range, the whole spectrum of issues that might arise in a person's life.
So, I mean, in that case, you're saying a couple themselves might call you up and say, hey, we are desperate to have a child, but we want to do this in a way that is consistent with church teaching, and then you'll try to kind of sort of take them by the hand and walk them through that?
Sure, absolutely. And I mentioned we're the largest publisher in the area of bioethics, so we have just a wealth of written material that we can send out to people too to help them work through it. But we're there to personally help them and discuss it with them. Some of these issues are very complex and hard to understand. So we really want to be available to the people who need help.
All right. Now, I know that the NCBC also offers a certification program in healthcare ethics. Can you talk to us about what that's about?
Yes. I mean, one of our primary areas of activity is education. And before I get to the certification program, one of the most important of our educational endeavors is a workshop that we hold every other year, to which we invite all the bishops of Canada, the United States, Mexico, Central America, and the Caribbean. And they gather in Dallas, Texas, and for 2.5 days, they attend lectures and reflect on bioethical issues that they have to face in their pastoral role as bishops.
How many bishops you normally get show up at one of those things?
Well, the last one in February, we had 140 bishops.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
It's the largest gathering of bishops apart from their annual meeting. You know?
Right.
But we're thrilled. And we also have different kinds of memberships, but most of the bishops in the country have diocesan memberships in the National Catholic Bioethics Center. But another part of our educational program, which we actually started at the request of a number of bishops, is a national certification program in healthcare ethics. And people can enroll in this. It's an online year-long program. They have to attend 2 days seminar in which we discuss the ethical and religious directives, which are issued by the bishops to guide healthcare in the United States. So we spend a 2-day seminar with them, and then for a whole year, they do weekly assignments. They get on the telephone with conference calls 4 times in that period. And then at the end of it, they come back, they come to our center here in Philadelphia. Actually, the initial seminars are held all over the country. I mean, Phoenix, Los Angeles, Boston, Philadelphia, Bismarck, North Dakota. They're held everywhere. But the final get-together, if you will, is held here in Philadelphia. And we have a question and answer period. We have mock ethics committee, and then we have oral exams, and then they write a paper. So it's a pretty rigorous program. And when they're finished, they receive a certificate from us that they have successfully completed the program. We also provide academic credits toward a Master of Science degree with the University of Mary in Bismarck, and academic credits toward a Master of Theology degree with Holy Apostles Seminary College and Seminary in Cromwell, Connecticut. So people can actually take advantage of our program toward an academic degree.
And that certificate, is that the kind of thing that if somebody is going to work, for instance, you know, for a diocese or a Catholic hospital or something, that they can present that and it will sort of put a good housekeeping seal of approval on their preparedness to do the job?
Absolutely. They make great use of it for those kinds of purposes. And as the bishops actually came to us and they said, you know, we're concerned because the moral teachings of the church are not being uniformly applied throughout the country and with all the various healthcare systems. So they actually asked us to develop a healthcare educational program, which we did.
Okay. Well, you can find information on that program and much more on the website of the National Catholic Bioethics Center. John, remind me, what is your website again?
It's ncbcenter.org. That's National Catholic Bioethics Center.org, ncbcenter.org.
Okay, ncbcenter.org. Check it out. I guarantee you, if you have even a passing interest in bioethics, you're going to find what's up there absolutely mesmerizing. Now, John, you know, since we have like the Catholic Church's go-to brainiac on all things bioethical here, before I let you go, I want to ask you a couple of questions about some bioethics things that have been in the news lately. Let's start with the Charlie Gard case in the U.S., which of course was, or in the U.K. rather, which was heart-wrenchingly tragic. As you know, along the way, Pope Francis weighed in on it, President Trump weighed in on it, the Bambino Gesù Hospital, which is a papally sponsored hospital, pediatric hospital in Rome, weighed in on it. Now that the dust has settled a little bit, John, long term, what do you think are the main takeaways from a Catholic perspective on the Charlie Gard drama?
Well, you know, this was a child that was dying, frankly, from an incurable genetic disorder. The child could not have been saved. And the hospital in England wanted to withdraw the support, life support for that child. And the parents opposed it vigorously. Now, these kinds of bioethical questions are also culturally contextualized or conditioned. Because in England, if there's a conflict that arises between the healthcare institution and a patient or the patient's proxy, it goes to the courts. And that's what happened in England. And so you had some judge making the judgment and determinations as to the kind of care that Charlie Gard, that the baby should receive or should not care or should not receive. That wouldn't happen in the United States. I mean, principally it falls to the parents, to the healthcare proxy to be making these decisions on behalf of the patient. And if there's a conflict between the hospital and the patient's wishes, there's always deference given to the patient rather than to the hospital. So it's a different cultural situation here in these two countries. The Catholic Church has developed a very, very rich moral tradition to address these kinds of questions. I mean, the church realizes that our ultimate destiny is to be with God forever in heaven, and we have a limited, finite life here. A lot of people have the mistaken belief that the Catholic Church teaches that you have to do everything possible to keep somebody alive as long as possible, which is not true at all. The Catholic Church says if a medical intervention is not going to offer a reasonable hope of benefit without an excessive burden, the patient's not obliged to take on that medical treatment. It's no longer morally obligatory. It's optional. They can do it, but they're not obliged to do it. So in this case, with poor little Charlie Gard, it would have been legitimate to have stopped the interventions. I mean, according to Catholic teaching. But then again, according to Catholic teaching, the decision about this should have rested with the patient, or in this case, the patient's parents, the proxy for the child who couldn't make his own decisions.
Now, John, you, of course, are an advisor to both the U.S. bishops and in various guises to the Vatican on many bioethical questions. Like, if the leadership of the U.S. Bishops' Conference and, the leadership of the Vatican were in a single room and brought you in and said, okay, Dr. Haas, give us 2 or 3 kind of emerging bioethical issues that really ought to be on our radar screen right now. What's your answer?
Well, that can be a little difficult, but the issue fundamentally isn't these individual crises or challenges, but a much bigger, broader problem which the church is manifestly equipped to address. And that is, we live in a society in which human beings are being depersonalized. They're no longer being treated as human beings. They no longer have ineffable value. And so human beings, the weak and the vulnerable, are becoming the minds from which the wealthy and the powerful draw their own benefit. Like, for example, there's a flourishing international trade in living human organs. And you have a man in New York who needs a kidney. His physician contacts a supplier in Israel. He goes to his man in the Philippines, in Manila. He goes into the slums and finds a healthy, strapping young man, pays him $1,500 for his kidney, little follow-up medical care. The kidney's flown to South Africa. The man from New York flies to South Africa, and he's got a brand new kidney. And this poor man is sent back into the slums with money, which very quickly evaporates usually. So we're actually preying on other human beings and using them to benefit those who are wealthy and powerful. We have all kinds of proposals for thawing frozen embryos, which are left over from in vitro fertilization procedure. These are procedures that are used to overcome infertility. Human beings are engendered in a petri dish by putting the gametes, the sex cells, in the petri dish. Embryos are engendered. Some are implanted in the woman with the hope that they will take, if you will, and the others are frozen. And so we have hundreds of thousands of embryos in suspended animation and liquid nitrogen. Again, just a devaluing of the human person. And there are many who call for the thawing of these embryos so that they can be disaggregated and used for research. And in fact, I mean, many who aren't even frozen, many embryos are being engendered. Human beings are brought into existence so that scientists can do experimentation on them and just discard them when they're finished. So it's really this devaluing of the human person that is the biggest problem and gives rise to these individual challenges. And no one is better equipped to address that broad social and cultural issue than the Catholic Church.
Well, folks, you see now why I told you at the beginning this is the Catholic Church's go-to guy on bioethical questions, because, as always, I mean, not only does John Haas know the medical and the scientific stuff, he is also thoroughly grounded in the Catholic tradition and approaches all of this from a Catholic perspective. John, as we go forward, as new thorny bioethical conundra arise, I hope we can keep talking to you.
Always, and we're so fortunate to be able to have the rich moral tradition of the Catholic Church, which gives us the tools to work through these problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was John Haas, president of the National Catholic Bioethics Center. Please do check out their website at ncbcenter.org. You'll find background on the center. You'll find their latest on breaking bioethical questions. You can also get background on that certification program we talked about. And if you're somebody who is trying to make their way in healthcare, the life sciences, but wants to do it from a distinctly Catholic perspective, that is an absolutely singular and terrific resource for you. So please do make sure you take a look at that. We will have other installments of these Crux video interviews going forward. Until then, I am John Allen, and I will talk to you again soon.